Hey guys, so I know this one is a little strange. Anubaraks didn't get any major changes, and he's still kind of out of the meta. The change that he got was this burning Beetles. You deal 22 damage per second to nearby enemies, and the Beetles do 7 damage per second to nearby enemies. I talked about it a little bit and said there's a lot of damage potential in this talent if you can get all of the Beetles out at once on a target. There is a pretty high damage potential, but I also wanted to talk a little bit about where does Beetle build sit right now on Anubarak? I think in competitive, it's definitely not the build because you get bursted rather easily. So you kind of want to go with more of like the defensive talents, things like the spell armor, maybe lower cooldown or movement speed, lower cooldown on it, or potentially you want bigger shields being applied when you go in, and just a higher health pool. So I definitely don't think it's the build in competitive. But I did want to show it just a little bit because Anubarak's always been one of my favorite heroes as a tank, and I find myself playing Anubarak a decent amount purely because of the amount of CC he has. And with the Beetle change, I wanted to at least try it out and see what the difference might be. So with that being said, the changes are at level 13, but I'm still going to show you guys my build and what I end up going for the earlier portions of the game, how I approach fights, and kind of my thought process behind the things that I'm doing. My early game, I'll be honest, is pretty rough. I wasn't expecting people in like the low diamond range to coordinate and actually try to blow up a tank very often, but they learned early on that they could blow up Anubarak rather quickly, and they did it several times. So the early game, I'm definitely going to get jumped on quite a bit. So right here, I like to always make an aggressive showing to see if like my team follows up, because as a Anubarak, it's very easy to peel for your team, where you simply just throw out a Q and the enemies just they get CC'd, you walk away. But if there is an opportunity where like maybe he pops his thing that lowers his health down to like here, I can just jump on him and kill him with just like one auto off of the Anubarak or off of the Hanzo. So if he makes that mistake, I'm just gonna see if I can go in for it. In this case, I just do a little bit of damage to him and try to just get out alive. Nothing really crazy, but I do have my E available, and Hanzo landed a good ability, so we end up just closing him out. And that's the stuff that you kind of need to look for if you're playing Anubarak, because he is balanced on the fact that he has so much CC and such a long range engage, that if you're not using the long range engage and you're not using the CC effectively, then you're just playing a very weak tank at that point. So right here was probably the first time that I was made a pretty big mistake. I see that we were controlling top, we were controlling bottom as long as I stayed here, and I saw that I saw that Hanzo was heading mid, and I was like, if we're fast enough with this, and if I hold this long enough, we'll be able to channel the Dragonite. So I stay here and kind of suicide, trying to hold this point. What I should have seen was that KT, but I was so focused on staying alive that I ended up just getting roasted. So that was it was definitely a misplay on my part. I probably should have left earlier. There's also the challenge where I could have jumped over and then just hearth down here. But I mean, the death timers are so low, it would have been essentially the same thing if I would have hearth down there. So now I head back to help my team once again and see if I could head back down bottom lane. Now it takes a while for us to take back bottom lane, and I make several mistakes along the way, things that you guys definitely don't have to make. But let's talk about my build a little bit. Level 1, Legion of Beetles. Beetles have 30 armor and automatically spawns a Beetle every 12 seconds. The 30 armor is mostly negligible, and it's not going to make that big of a difference. Again, just huge mistake on my part. Nothing that my team could have done about that. And so the spell armor part's a little negligible. It's kind of nice against people like KT, so your Beetles don't just accidentally die to like random spell damage. But overall, it's not really that great for the spell armor. It's the fact that Beetles spawn every 12 seconds, and it doesn't spawn while you are moving on a mount, and it doesn't spawn while you're moving on your burrow charge, meaning that if you burrow charge onto someone, you're going to instantly spawn one Beetle at the end of the burrow charge, and you're instantly going to spawn a second Beetle at the end of the burrow charge for the Legion of Beetles. Then with a Q and a W, that's 4 Beetles on a single person every time that you charge in on them, which means that you're going to get a good chunk of Beetles, even if it's a long cooldown, you always kind of start a fight with 4 Beetles. And I just want to show you, like, this was a full health KT that I jumped on, and I'm just CCing, and I'm body blocking as much as I can, and I CC again. I mean, look at how effectively I did 80% of this KT's health, and I only needed one person to help me out. And that's how a lot of Anubarak actually works, is you can do a huge portion of people's health without really any issues quite often. Now, level 7, I take Leeching Scarabs. So what Leeching Scarabs does, your Beetles are going to gain 30% bonus attack damage. And when they attack, they're going to heal Anubarak for 50% of the damage they do, as long as he's nearby. So I'm going to automatically summon 4 Beetles that now do 30% more damage and heal me, which is going to increase the sustained survivability that I have. I'll still die to burst. The same thing that's been killing me, I'll still die to, which is the reason that a lot of people in the competitive scene aren't using Anubarak. But I actually wonder how strong this actually is for normal games where people aren't as coordinated, and now I have all this extra sustain. So right here, once again, I stay bottom lane because I want my team to still control everything. But with this Hanzo here, I figured I would go to one of the strengths of Anubarak and Beetle build, which is summoned units get attacked before other minions do. So, because I'm summoning so many Beetles, they are actually going to tank the towers so that my minions can stay alive longer. Diablo's not someone who has a lot of wave clear. Their only wave clear is Kael'thas. So if I stay down here and I just keep summoning Beetles, I'm going to endlessly push. And if Hanzo's down here with me, who cares if we have a Dragonite if we can endlessly push? So this is one of the things that I do often when I'm playing Anubarak, is I use him almost like a siege hero as long as I'm with someone who does a little bit of siege damage. Hanzo doesn't even do that much siege damage, but that's okay because I'm just going to keep summoning Beetles. And if you notice, I'm saving my E just for the off chance I get flipped by Diablo, I can use E to get out, but I'm using my Q and my W off cooldown just to summon more and more Beetles. And so I just summon a Beetle up there, I summon a Beetle here, I summon a Beetle here, and by this time, Rhaegar finally was able to join and keep Kael'thas off, and we were able to get the Dragonite. But even still, the Dragonite's going to go middle right here, and just watch how many Beetles I'm just going to... And how far we're pushing. We haven't stopped pushing yet, and we're still summoning Beetles. I summon 2 more Beetles here. I summon another Beetle here. We destroy one of the turrets, and there's another Beetle that's being spawned, and there's another Beetle that's being spawned, and now I use my Q... And there's more Beetles. Do you see how the Dragonite went mid first, got a little bit of work done, and I've just been tanking this with Beetles almost the entire time. So that's why it's pretty effective. So right here, I go for a Q. I just get some extra damage off, use my W. I let my Beetles top me off a little bit, take a bit more damage than I really want. And I take a step back. We can go in, but I'm just going to send some Beetles in so I can get a little bit of extra healing. Right when that arrow goes off, I decide to go in, get a kill, and then back off. So I want to talk a little bit about Bed of Barbs. Bed of Barbs gives you just a little bit of wave clear. It's not much. It's 32 damage per second, and it procs 4 times, essentially. So where it says 32 and it only lasts 3.5 seconds, it technically acts as if there's 4 seconds there. So 4 times 30, you're doing 120 damage. It's not great, but it helps with wave clear. I also like it because it kind of zones out small areas, and if you ever are running away from enemies, your Q will dismount them, and then the Bed of Barbs will slow them on the way. So it's really good, and if you combine it with Beetles, it does give you a decent amount of wave clear. So I like Bed of Barbs. You could get away with any talent. I'm just not really a big fan of any of these other talents, because like if you're not taking all the W talents, I don't really like the extra movement speed, because I'm just gonna stay mounted until I go in, and I don't really need extra damage on this because I'm gonna be doing extra damage on this, and I don't really need the extra range because I still need to be kind of near my team when I charge in, or else it's not really worth going in. So that kind of explains the reason why I go Bed of Barbs, and then I take Cocoon just because Cocoon's like really good, and it turns every fight into a 4v5, and if you're ever chasing enemies, you can Cocoon someone, and then your team gets a free kill. So I really like Cocoon. Level 6 or level 13 is where the build's going to get a little bit more serious with the burning beetles, and then 16 Beetlejuiced is a talent I always debate because I don't think you're going to be standing around and auto attacking people or heroes very often, so I don't really see it getting a lot of value. But I ticket this game purely because I figured that maybe Diablo might be going auto attack build, and if he's going to be attacking me the whole time, I might as well be summoning a bunch of beetles. And so that was kind of my reasoning for that. I don't think he went auto attack. Oh yeah, he did go auto attack build. But yeah, it's definitely debatable, especially since Epicenter is extremely good. So I would say this is the only talent in old Beetle build. I almost never took Beetlejuice. I would just take Epicenter. I'm debating it more and more these days. So right here, we get a kill, and I could go join my team mid, or I have a catapult down bottom, and I'm like, maybe if I just keep the catapult alive forever, that'll be more valuable than trying to get the Dragonite. See, I almost don't care about the Dragonite. So right here, I jump in on him just so that I can summon a bunch of beetles, and you see the burning damage from the beetles. It's actually quite a lot of damage. The beetles, you can see 43 damage from an attack and 12 damage for the burn every second from each beetle. And so it's a surprising amount of damage. And then again, I'm just summoning a bunch of beetles. So we are able to get a kill onto Misha there, and I just decide that I'm just going to keep pushing bottom because I can keep spawning things and Rexar can't kill them fast enough. So you're going to see I'm using my W and Q off cooldown as well as letting the Scarab host just summon as many as they want to. And I'm going to do whatever I can to keep this catapult up and continually doing damage. So if you get a catapult early on Anubarak, you can do this if you get a kill or if you're even pressuring a lane. Now, I don't want to give Zul'jin free stacks, so I take a step back when he shows up, and I just let my beetles push. And they do a decent... I mean, look at all this purple that's popping up. It's actually really good. And again, our catapult's still up. This whole time, our catapult's still up. I could go in on this guy, and I think I do decide to go in on him. And again, it's a lot of burst damage that we do. I also cocoon Zul'jin here because I'm like, maybe my Q will be off cooldown in time, and then we can kill this Zul'jin as well. And he went guillotine, which means he's just dead, honestly. Like, I think this ult is such a bait. But just because it doesn't even 100 to 0 anyone, right? Like, what's the purpose of it if it doesn't even 100 to 0 someone? Just play Orphe at that point. You can do all the same things, but you're more mobile and have more survivability. Right now, you're playing a very immobile person who can't even 100 to 0. But yeah, so I just end up taking him out. It's like, oh wow, I mean, you did get a kill there, but you also died. Where if he used his ult, he would have lived there. But yeah, now I just summon beetles because Diablo. There's 3 people up top. I don't care if we lose top. We're already losing top, and by the time I get up there, they're gonna leave. So what I'd rather do is keep my catapult alive. I have burning beetles, so I stand near the wave, and we're just taking it out. Look at all this purple that's popping up. So much purple. And now we leave. There's nothing else to get in bottom lane. So we didn't need a Dragonite to get this keep. All I needed was to get 1 catapult and then have 1 person follow up one of my abilities. And it's like, we haven't controlled top in so long, I don't even really care anymore. Now, this is something that Hanzo pinged. I didn't really think we can get this kill, but at the same time, it didn't really cost us anything. I think he ends up dying for it, but whatever. Sure, I get that. But yeah, I do end up taking Beetlejuice. It increases the health of your beetles by 40%. Again, that's kind of negligible. Your beetles aren't really dying that much. They generally just time out. So right here, I was worried because I saw Diablo going bot. I saw a few other people going bot. So for me, my priority was not to get a kill on this guy, which I don't think I ever could. It was just to get this back so that, or at least to neutral, so that we wouldn't lose a Dragonite. Now, I want to also defend this, though. So if I see a Malfurion try to walk in here, I want to be able to defend it. I do a decent amount of damage to him. Half of Malfurion's health in a very short period of time is not bad. Half of the KT's health as well in a short period of time is not bad. So it's really a strong build as far as the damage you deal in sustained fights. The challenge is non-sustained fights. Those really bursty fights, that's where this build's going to struggle. But hopefully when you do take a bursty fight, it's on your terms and not anyone else's. So I actually think it's a pretty cool build. But it is kind of weak for a little while. Like you need to get to 13. It's okay before 13, but it's definitely not as strong. But I do think this talent is really powerful. So again, I don't really want to engage. This is a mistake a lot of people make. Like they just charge in all the times when their abilities are up. I don't really want to engage. See how many times I'm just using my Q and my W? I'm just keeping all of these guys distracted. Do you see how I'm just keeping all of these guys distracted and not pushed in? We're fighting 2 versus 4 right now. I don't want them to get up here because they're going to take our fort. So I'm just trying to summon as many beetles to keep them away. Once they get up to our fort, I'm like, okay, this is going to be a lot harder now. And we end up going in for a kill. I still could probably go for my E, and if that arrow would have gone off, I would have gone for it. I didn't really like this once I missed my E, but at the same time, my Beetles are still healing me, so I could just attack him, but you can see, so far, Beetlejuice hasn't really gotten any value. I haven't been able to attack on a hero for even 3 times in a row to get any value from Beetlejuice. I would imagine in like on a Dragonshire, it could get a lot of value because you'll fight very small fights where you don't get bursted, and that's something that you can definitely do. But so right here, I did summon an extra Beetle. You can see 5, I think 6 Beetles out now. So that is something that you can do. I end up cocooning the Zul Jin because I didn't have enough damage to kill him, and he's the one that's going to be doing the most damage to me. So I end up cocooning him, and I end up getting out here because my Beetles healed a little bit, and I just do a little bit of shenanigans here because I didn't know that he used his ult, so I figured that he had it. So I figured that if I kept going in this direction, he would ult over here. So I wanted to play against him, assuming that he had his ult. And I have Beetles that heal me, so I also want to be summoning a Beetle and then getting out of the range of him. And then same thing, I want to wait, and then I use my E to go in. And he did predict where I probably would have gone if I wasn't doing that. And that's what I was worried about in the first place. So, again, I'm really not a big fan of Guillotine, but whatever. In this case, the enemies have control, or actually we have control over this, so I think I end up just backing, getting health and mana, and then coming back into the fight later. The other thing, too, is you actually do camps pretty fast once you get Burning Beetles. I don't think I'm ever going to show that I do a camp, but you can do camps rather quickly because all of your Beetles, not only are you going to be doing 43 damage per second, but you're likely going to have 4 or 5 Beetles out, probably like 4. And so that means you're also going to have those 4 Beetles all doing about 15 DPS. I mean, you're closing in, and all the Beetles do damage as well. But that's AoE. All of those are doing AoE damage, and then you are also doing single target damage, and your Beetles are doing single target damage, and Bed of Barbs is doing AoE damage. So you can actually do camps rather fast in this build. It's not going to be like Jaina or anything, but it's also not bad either. You see, I CC both targets. I do get probably 1 Beetlejuice value off of that, but I don't know if it would be worth more than just using Epicenter. So again, Beetlejuice I'm definitely on the fence about. But I think on a map where the fights are a little bit more spread out, it's good. But I think in competitive, you're definitely going to want Epicenter for the higher chance of landing those big stuns. Now, with that, we're going to be heading in, and I just tell my team to go bot. I just ping bot. We've got a bunch of katas down here, and I can tank bottom forever. So that's exactly what we do. I go for a stun, I go for a second stun, I pick rewind, I go for a third stun, and then I just summon Beetles and leave. And that's all I do. And now I'm just going to jump around, summon as many Beetles as possible, and my goal is to simply just use a cocoon on KT when he shows up, because I don't want him to be able to stop us. So I'm still summoning Beetles, but I want to make my way back over so I can cocoon KT. I end up getting him mid Pyro, which is pretty good, and my Beetles will just melt the core. You see all that purple happening, and that is the build. So let's talk about it a little bit. Legion of Beetles, you get to summon 4 Beetles whenever you charge in. Bed of Barbs gives you some wave clear, some camp clear. Not great. It's also great if people are chasing you. Leeching Scarabs, it's that sustain, and it's going to be great as long as you don't get bursted. Burning Beetles, that's what the whole build's about, and it actually is a strong enough talent to build a build around, in my opinion. Oh, Cocoon. It's just Cocoon. You just always take Cocoon. Beetlejuiced. Beetlejuiced, I am on the fence about. I think if it's more team fight oriented, I wouldn't take this talent. But if it's more spread out fights like Braxis or whatever, I would take Beetlejuice. Against Deathwing, I think I would always take Beetlejuice because he often lets me stand and attack him for a little while, and his abilities are slow enough I can dodge most of them. So I'd say maybe against Deathwing, prioritize Beetlejuiced and then rewind every time. Because, I mean, locking down someone for like 4 seconds is just straight up overpowered. And that is the build. I highly recommend trying it out. I don't think it's going to be meta. I think ETC with the Encore buff is absolutely insane. I would say that is first ban, first pick material right now until it gets nerfed. I still think May's better. I think a lot of the tanks are better, but if you're someone who already likes Anubarak, give this build a shot because it is a lot of fun and it is really powerful when you start reaching like the 13 and 20 power spikes. It's very powerful, especially with just if you even just queued with one damage dealer, you could really do quite a bit. And that's exactly what I did this game. I didn't actually queue with anyone. I just hopped in a game. But the damage dealer, Hanzo, was following me around. And, I mean, he was playing pretty well. And we were able to get a lot done with him just following me around a little bit. So, with all of that being said, thank you guys so much for watching. And feel free to check out my other videos.